backpack things.
Yeah,
Paragliders.
that's what I do, yeah.
That's probably the biggest, most of those are, many of those are 103, right?
They all are pretty much.
Sure. Even the power
When
parachutes
they
with the
carry
912
it,
on
it
them?
weighs 255
Yeah.
pounds or whatever. it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, the FAA never opened Part 103, and I understand why. Do we all understand why?
No.
Okay. My website, by the way, is fly-ul.com. On my website, if you go there, I do have a page that addresses that very issue. It basically boils down to this. Now, I'm going to paraphrase from what I remember me writing a long time ago. Under Part 103, you are exempt from any other regulation. You're not even subject to Part 91. Okay? Now what does that mean? Under Part 91, guys who have licenses, you should know this. Very basic things such as VFR cruising altitudes, odd plus 500, even plus 500, that kind of thing. Part 103 ultralight doesn't need to know that. Under Part 103, you could go up to 18,000 feet, up to Class A airspace. You can't even do that with Sport Pilot. Okay? You can't even do that with Rec Pilot. The FAA, you got ultralights down here with no license, no training, no nothing. Then you got Sport Pilot, Rec Pilot, private, commercial, ATP, right? The higher you go up the rung, the ladder, the more privileges you get. Well, in a couple of ways, Part 103 kind of violates that. You can fly usually later in the day than a Sport Pilot can. Half hour after sunset, where a Sport Pilot can only fly at best to the end of civil twilight. They're very close, I'll give you that, but usually not a half hour, maybe 20 minutes, something like that. Again, Sport Pilot, 10,000 feet, 2,000 AGL. Ultralight guy can go as high as he wants. True, an ultralight can't fly over the city, but he can fly in Class B, C, and D airspace with permission. There's just some quirks there, but believe me, you don't want to touch it. And look at 9/11, when 9/11 happened. There was meetings between Homeland Security, the FAA, and all other interested parties, and they were really worried about what kind of airplanes could do damage. Terrorist activities. We all know that there's trikes and stuff bringing the drugs over. We've seen that. So, FAA, how many ultralight pilots are there out there? We don't know. There's no license. We have no earthly idea. Okay, all right. How many ultralights are out there? We have no earthly idea. They're not required to be registered. I'm sure that's a big problem for the feds, not having control on stuff. Those of you with airworthiness certificate or registration and numbered airplanes, those used to last forever. Now you have to renew them every 3 years because the FAA said, no, we got to clamp down on what's actually out there flying. So there's a lot of reasons that I'm sure the FAA will not ever open up Part 103 for modernization or increases. I agree. It'd be nice if just a little bit more weight, a little more fuel. In the name of safety, airplanes have gotten a little heavier. It's not that we want to fly 914 turbo engine go fast airplanes. It's just that in the name of safety they've gotten bigger. But the problem is how do they deal with this? If they did, they might say, okay, well now you got to have some sort of an FAA license, or okay, now these airplanes got to be registered. Who wants that? Or let's see here, VFR cruising altitudes under Part 91, the odd plus 500, even plus 500 starts at 3,000 feet above the ground. Okay, since you ultralight people don't have to abide by Part 91 rules, maybe we'll keep you below 3,000 feet. Keep some separation. There's all sorts of things they could do, but I kind of agree. You probably don't want to open it up because you won't like what you hear. Now, I've heard that very, very statement from the FAA back in the day when the USAA was active. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I often wondered why we just don't do what Canada did. Everybody gets a license, everybody gets a number, everybody gets training.
Well, there you go. I mean, really, that's kind of where we're at, except for the Part 103 airplanes. And that's why I say maybe you don't want to open Part 103 because that'll probably at least make a license.
Part 103 includes a lot of unpowered flight too.
True.
Just soaring.
Yep.
Canada just changed their requirements to go into their airspace. You can't fly directly from the United States, like, unless you're way out over the water to get to Alaska anymore. You have to have a special transponder code and something else. I just got an email from AOPA this morning explaining all the details, which I can't remember right now, but you try flying up into Canada, if you got a transponder that you're used to using down here, it won't work up there anymore.
Interesting, yeah, interesting.
So what?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if, asking for a friend, like, if say you've got an ultralight that's too heavy, what's involved, like, you need to get this, like, sport license and then an N number, and you gotta, like, yearly expenses
Yeah.
involved with your plane now that are
Two
mandatory.
things, you almost kind of think of this like a car, has to be registered properly with the state, and not the feds, but, car has to be registered to be driven on the streets, and the driver has to have some kind of a license. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing. The airplane has to be legal, and the pilot has to be legal. So yeah, that means that you have to get a license of some kind. As far as the aircraft goes, the process involves, you have to get an N number on it, which is no big deal. You get on the website, you reserve for $5 your own N number, you slap it on the plane. That means nothing. By the way, I say that because I've seen so many Barnstormer ads where it's N number. That means nothing. If you're buying an airplane that you think is N numbered from Barnstormers, make sure you see the registration and see the airworthiness certificate. Because too many people, I've seen it happen a lot of times. They put N numbers on the thing. That doesn't mean nothing. Anyways, gotta get the N numbers. The biggest thing is the aircraft is inspected by the FAA. All right, and then it's issued an airworthiness certificate. Usually, I think pink for the experimentals, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the FAA used to do them themselves, these inspections, and I guess they still will if you wait long enough. But they've kind of given that job. They've kind of given that job to the DARs, the designated airworthiness representatives. Guys like me, I'm a civilian with power. That's all I am. A guy with power. I represent the FAA when I do these pilot things.
You're a DAR also?
I'm not.
Oh.
I'm a DPE, but
Yeah.
a DAR is the same kind of guy. He's just a civilian who's been blessed and approved by the FAA to do this stuff. He's a guy with power. That's all he is. So, so it's a two-pronged thing. Now, the biggest thing is how do you get your airplane to be a legal registered airplane? We talked about this before. You're in a good spot, a better spot perhaps if your airplane's been totally disassembled, right down to kit
I was
form.
gonna ask about that.
The other out-the-box way of doing it would be the exhibition category, which it's okay. I've seen airplanes there. One of the problems with the exhibition category, we talked about that before, that was the Warbirds one, right? There's no repairman for repairman certificate for those planes. So you definitely will have annual inspections done by an A&P. Okay, with amateur built, you might be able to get the repairman certificate for that plane just from the fact that you've proven to the FAA that you built it or rebuilt it. Okay. What does a repairman certificate allow you to do? It allows you to do your own annual inspections. Because if you go to a standard CFI on a field someplace, he knows Cessna, Piper, Continental, and Lycoming, and that's all he wants to talk about. He doesn't want to touch a two-stroke anything. Most of them, many of them. So a repairman certificate allows you to do your own annual inspections. Anybody can work on an experimental. You do not need any kind of an FAA license to work on an experimental. Which is, by the way, the beauty of experimentals. That's why most of us want to own one. Because we're cheap bastards. None of us want to hire somebody, by the hour to do work on our airplanes. So, yeah.
I may one day, make it electric.
Okay.
What do I have to do if I decide to go that direction? I mean, it's a possibility, I'm just saying, yeah.
Well, I can tell you in the amateur built world, when you get your airplane certificate in the amateur built world, you're issued operating limits. In particular, you're issued phase 1 limits and phase 2 limits. Phase 1 limits are usually what you have to do for the first 20 to 40 hours usually after that airplane is born. It's the flight testing phase. Okay, citizen, we've given you an airworthiness certificate, now you go out there by yourself, don't kill anybody else, and test fly this thing. You're a test pilot, and you prove that it's safe. Once you've done that, you write some big, long-winded endorsement in your logbook, and you profess that it's safe, and then phase 2 limits take effect, that kind of thing. If you're making big engine changes, motor changes, engine combination changes, the process is usually you put the airplane back into phase 1, and I think for something like that, you write a letter to the FAA. I don't remember how this works. It's very infrequent that this happens. I think it's called a program letter. You write a letter to the FAA that says, I'm doing this to my airplane, and here's how I plan to test it. I'm gonna fly, in this area over here, no people, gave the